Welcome to Treknicity, a Star Trek podcast. I'm your host, Patrick, and joining me as usual is
Lars. You know, if you keep that singing crap going, I'm going to start singing solo. And you really don't want a repeat of the spaghetti incident, do we?
Good point. I'll stop.
In this 10th episode of the 7th and final season of Treknicity, we present to you a recap of the 9th episode of Season 2 of Star Trek Strange New Worlds entitled Subspace Rhapsody. You thought I was going to sing there for a second, didn't you?
What?
You thought I was going to sing there for a second, didn't you?
I was afraid of that. But we're going to do this one. So we're going to do this a little differently this week since there's like 5, 6, 7 B plots going on. So I'm going to try to break down the main plot, and then we'll go into the subplots because we got to do the music. Reminder, this is going to be there's going to be plenty of spoilers as usual, and for some reason I'm going to reference the musical episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer a whole lot, despite Joss Whedon. Fuck that asshole. Did I say that loud? Yes, I did.
Yeah, you did.
Okay.
Let's break this down.
So yeah, obviously our previously on Strange New Worlds is setting up all the B plots for all the songs. But let's get to the main plot. The Enterprise is studying a natural subspace fold, trying to speed up so they can get instantaneous subspace communication. Because otherwise it's like, let's call, and it'll take forever unless we're doing the one episode where we kind of need it to be immediate so that, for plot reasons. Yeah. So, which means we get Uhura, who gets this episode as she becomes very much the focus of this episode in the A plot. She becomes a switchboard operator, and she's just going through people as fast as they can. And because the rest of the ship, the computing power is all being used that, so for some reason she's got to be a switchboard. Either way, it gives her the chance to make the opening log entry, and gives her some time to shine. She chills out. Ends up eventually going down to engineering, where she, Spock, and Pelia are trying to figure out how to make this work. None of the things work so far. So Pelia, after a little bit of Uhura singing, of course, Pelia decides, hey, why don't you try music? Uhura gets to pick the song, and she goes the classic Anything Goes. Of course, this backfires, and this big wave comes flying out, and everybody's like, what happened? And they start singing about it.
I refer that event as the Great Space Fart.
Yeah. Either way, they start singing and are trying to figure it out, and we get a little bit of everybody singing. Of course, we get the first chance to hear Christina Chong and how good she's going to sound. She's the second best in this episode, but yeah. Eventually, after they have a little bit of singing, we find out, from the technobabble explanations, the feedback from this created what's called a quantum uncertainty field, and basically we're in an alternate reality where apparently this is a universe where everybody sings their emotions. Come a little later in the episode, La'an says this could be a security risk since people are singing when they are feeling strong emotion. They try some things to fix that. They try to zip this. It looks like it unzipped, so they try to zip it up. That backfires, and it starts feeding into the entire fleet through subspace, and it hits the Klingons, who are somehow dishonored, and we find out why later. Oh, boy, do we find out why later.
Yeah, I was not prepared for that.
Yeah, we'll get to that. They send some Katinga cruisers to go blow it up. This is interspersed with all the B plots and everybody singing basically they're singing their emotions out. This is probably the biggest parallel with the Buffy the Vampire Slayer episode Once More with Feeling, which is their musical episode, where in that case a demon comes in and basically everybody starts confessing things because of this demon. And when they run out of things, the demon makes them dance until they burn up and die, because that's a Buffy episode. In this case, it's music's the problem, and of course music is the solution, because Uhura, after getting her big solo number, figures out that they basically have to have a big finale number to finish it off and get everybody singing together on the ship to make this happen, which means the big finale number.
You know, this and that smacks.
Holy shit.
For me, that smacks of spoiler alert, smacks of the finale of Bill and Ted Face the Music.
Which, okay, I hadn't thought of that one because I haven't watched that in a little while, but I haven't watched the Buffy episode longer. But that's how much the Buffy episode stuck in my head.
Yeah, well, I mean, you've traditionally been a very, very big Buffy the Vampire Slayer fan. In fact, the reason why I actually started watching the series is because you wouldn't shut up about it.
Yeah, and yeah.
Have
you gotten into Avatar: The Last Airbender? Or
No, stop. Next thing you're going to be getting on to me about Babylon 5.
Oh, don't worry. We will talk about Babylon 5 because they're getting a new movie and a reboot.
Stop.
Podcast I'm listening there. Yeah, the podcast I'm listening there. The next episode is going to be the big resolution, the biggest of the plots, the one that started from the first episode has going to this point.
Yeah. Okay.
One of the biggest plots. Yeah. And if you know, I'll just say, for those of you in the Babylon 5 know, the next episode deals with what happens at Coriana 6. I'll just say that. Anybody that knows Babylon 5 knows what that means.
Well, who's here?
It's when the third age of mankind starts to be blunt. So we have the big musical finale number, and even the Klingons show up. Should we just talk about that right now? Because, oh my... Yeah, let's just talk about that right now. We'll skip talking about it at the end of the episode, because it's basically a K-pop infused rap. They're dancing. There's mechas, and they're choreographed mechas. Yeah. And the most coolest part of it is our Klingon commander, who's all pissed about this and wants to just shoot torpedoes at the rift, which would make it a whole lot worse.
Yeah.
Is Bruce Horak.
And of course yeah.
We got Bruce Horak back as a Klingon rapping.
Yeah,
K-pop.
I know. I was like, is that who I think it is? Like,
it is.
Holy, like when you started, okay, so what I've tried to do is, we had the benefit of having early access to the first 6 episodes of the season, so we had to watch, episodes 7 through 10, like everybody else does on the day it comes out. So what I try to do is I'm trying to watch it on during my lunch break, and that way I've kind of got my exposure to it. I can kind of get an initial feel for it, and that's when I said to you, when I watched this one, I actually felt like, for me, even though musicals aren't really my favorite genre, well executed musicals are probably some of the most powerful experiences for me, because music carries an enormous amount of emotion for me. And I was just sitting there like, I actually had to excuse myself, because normally I sit at my desk and I'll watch it, and no, I had to go sit somewhere private and quiet, because I'm sitting there like, with especially La'an's her solo piece, I'm sitting there like, and fucking tears are going down my face, and thinking, man, somebody's chopping onions. But the whole thing is, like, when I got through this, I was like, I'm stunned, I'm speechless, because I have to let this sink in. And that's like what I said to you. I've watched it. I am saying nothing, because I don't. It's not even that I was afraid of spoiling anything, because you really can't spoil this episode. I mean, realistically, this is very much the formulaic Monster of the Week format for TV series, but
except Star Trek style.
Yeah, and the thing is, like, we know that the good guys are gonna win. that we know that's going to happen. We know we're going to wrap everything up in some way, shape, or form. They're going to resolve it all by the end of the episode. So I wasn't worried about spoiling. I was more about, I didn't want to impart my what am I trying to say? I didn't want to impart my emotions or my feelings on this episode. I wanted you to experience it just for yourself. And it just like the whole thing, man. The whole thing is just like I mean, when you think, oh man, it's all done and we're good and everything's resolved, then you get the Klingons. I'm like, oh shit, did we get the Backstreet Boys?
Yeah, I mean, they warned us of Chekhov. They put Chekhov's singing Klingons earlier in the episode, so we knew we were going to get singing Klingons. Boy, we didn't know this. I was thinking Klingon opera or
yeah, me too. That's what I was thinking.
That. And like, no.
I mean, I almost don't want to, like, I really don't want to go too much into detail about it and just say go watch it. But it's just so beautiful. I mean, it's so well executed because you're just like this is one thing in Star Trek we have never seen. I mean, the closest I've ever seen anything like this with Klingons was a parody of Gangnam Style, where it was called Klingon Style, and they basically did this whole parody of Gangnam Style as Klingons.
This was more ridiculous.
Yes.
And it was like 30 seconds.
Absolutely.
I could see why the Klingons felt dishonored. I'm just going to say that.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
Once we get the Klingons off the screen and that horrific nightmare of what the did I just see was gone, we get the remainder of the crew come on the bridge so they can do some choreography and everybody's singing and it hits the number they need, the number that they need to resolve thing. The Klingon ships are spiraling around the Enterprise. The kaleidoscope explodes and yay, it's the end, and everybody's laughing and smiling, and we get the original Alexander Courage theme comes back in its true glory, kind of like playing them off as they come out for their bows after the end of the musical.
Yeah, that was a nice touch. The other thing is one thing obviously Strange New Worlds has established themselves as being willing to go with the flow, so to speak. And that is when we saw the opening to Those Old Scientists episode. It was done in the Lower Decks animation style, and then in this one, the opening titles were done in a cappella.
Yeah, mostly. I mean, they replaced most of the instruments' voices,
right.
Although they kept some of the percussion and the theremin at the end.
Yes,
yeah. They kept those two elements. And did you listen to the post-credit?
I did.
End credits.
Yes.
The end credits, they start in more of a swing style, and then they shift into a waltz style. And it's like, these are really cool.
Yeah.
I enjoy it.
So again, I mean, they've that's in and of itself. I mean, they are by their own actions, they are exhibiting what the name of the title of the series is. Strange New Worlds, doing things differently, finding new stuff, and they certainly do things differently. And the thing is, this is a testament to Akiva Goldsman and Alex Kurtzman. And I know you're probably wondering, wait a minute, Lars is complimenting Kurtzman? Because I still have beef with him over the Abrams first movies. And Discovery, but
Discovery Klingon.
But again, it goes to show that the right leadership team can take even the dark horse elements of a franchise and turn it into something else, and kind of like Mandalorian.
Even though last season Mando was a little rough, but oh well. So. We end out the main plot of the episode. Uhura, who basically Pike had said, "You're the voice of the Enterprise, and everybody needs to be inspired." Because Uhura started the main song, and you could tell she's finally sliding into her groove as the communications officer aboard the Enterprise. Mm-hmm. That's what she's good at, and everybody loves her for it. And it's awesome. That's how it ends. And of course, she ends it. She's starts humming a little bit, and everybody looks at her and goes, "Oh, it's an earworm." That's the end. So let's get to the list OB and B subplots because there's a lot here. So first one's Una and Jim Kirk, and I gotta say Jim Kirk because remember we're doing double Kirk duty because Jim and Sam at some point get a scene together, but
and of course it's typical sibling rivalry. That hasn't gone away.
Yeah, because they're not. Because basically both of them are claiming Lon's talking to me.
Yeah.
Oh, talking to me.
No, he's talking to me.
Yeah.
No.
We'll get to that one, but yeah. So we get the Una and Jim Kirk. Basically, it's primarily Una's song with a little bit of Jim Kirk singing. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm gonna say right this: if Paul Wesley ever listens to our show and hears this episode, I am going to go on record right now and say I forgive you for the Vampire Diaries.
Yeah. Both he and Rebecca Romaine are solids, are decent. He's a decent singer. Rebecca Romaine's good, solid singer. I'll give them both. Yeah, I mean it's more Gilbert and Sullivan, and it's a filler. It's definitely a filler tune.
Oh, absolutely.
You gotta have filler tunes.
Yeah, you can't have everything being an A side, so to speak.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean mainly the song is mainly about how to be a good first officer and listening to your crew and all that. But this ends with them dancing down the hall a little bit with La'an watching from the side, which that immediately brings us to La'an's song. Mind you, the plot with the second B plot, which is La'an and Jim Kirk. Basically it begins in the previously where we get to see the whole La'an and alternate Jim Kirk situation.
Yeah, and I don't know if I must admit I don't remember from the episode or not whether or not from the episode where they both go back in time. I don't recall if was ever choreographed that we saw her retaining his wristwatch.
Yeah, we didn't know that. So yeah, this plot begins. Obviously, Lon shows up when Kirk's going to beam on, because she's got to run a security clearance, but Una kind of notices she's kind of got a little hot thing going on for Jimmy Kirk.
Yeah, she's like, I'm sweating over here.
Yeah, so she's kind of acting like a little schoolgirl around him, just a little bit. So we cut forward in the episode to where after she watches the Una and Kirk's duet, so she goes to her orders. She starts singing about her feelings for Kirk, imagining a future with him, and it's basically this is the song they gave to Christina Chong so she could tear it up. The song's a little mid though.
I mean,
but she's great.
Yeah, I mean, she's obviously proven herself as an accomplished singer with her recently released single, and yeah, but it's definitely in her range. It is definitely in her style. It actually allows her to flex her singing chops a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean she gets to tear it up, which unfortunately that means we go to the sub B plot between her and Una, because obviously they're kind of bouncing off each other, and Una knows there's something between Jim Kirk and La'an. So La'an, this cuts to the subplot between those two. La'an confides a little bit about that she has some feelings, and there may be some time stuff involved. So we get an Una song, and thankfully we don't have La'an chime in, because Christina Chong could easily overwhelm Rebecca Romaine, because Christina's the singer. Rebecca can sing, but there's a difference between somebody who can sing and a singer.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just there's different levels, and yeah, but they can turn off the gravity and they're singing, and it's a really nice one. It's all about about keeping secrets, but taking chances, but pointing about what you should about relationships and things like that. They cut to a few of the others who have some things that they don't exactly want to share, because Lon's concern is she's going to start singing in front of Jim Kirk and spilling her guts. So after this consultation, she goes on. she eventually gets in front of Kirk, shares some of the things she experienced, but not the details for obvious time reasons, to avoid singing about them. But Kirk kind of turns her down because he's got a career and he's in different ports and he's kind of on again, off again with this woman named Carol, and she's pregnant. Wonder what's going to happen with that. Oh, she's going to invent this thing, and then her son's going to hang around and get gutted on the Genesis planet or something, I guess. Also, probably a side note, Kirk also is not going to get tied down with Lon because he's in the future, he's got to go and playing a chick in every episode of the original series.
Yeah, but again, it's a real good way to, I guess, wrap up, that sort of B plot with those two characters, because they spent a while kind of like fanning a little bit of the flames, of what was kind of going on from that previous episode. But at the same time, you're just like, well, we can't really have them do this thing long term. It's the same way with Spock and Spackle, as you call it.
Yeah, it's gonna Spackle is ending in this one.
Right. So you can't. I mean, it's just like that. Like you're like, oh wow, this is kind of cool, but we know it can't last. So let's just nip it in the bud now and move on. And them introducing the whole plot line with Carol and her being pregnant with David is like we've never really known when this sort of happened. We had to assume because David would have been in his 20s during Star Trek II, so we know that it had to have happened during his 5-year mission. So they they shifted a little bit, but that's fine. I mean, again, it's good that they used that. They used it in a way that fit the storyline. Yeah.
Of course, we know that Kirk will, after his 5-year mission of banging literally everything he can put his Kirk stick into, then apparently that's when we get to Star Trek: The Motionless Picture, where we see a 5-minute ship porn where from what I understand, the novelization, it's basically Jim Kirk wants to fuck the Enterprise. Mm-hmm. Not kidding.
He wants to get
not kidding.
He wants to get his hands on her ample nacelles.
So I'm just gonna. So, yeah, this brings us to, and we'll come back to Spackle in a little bit, but let's deal with Pike and Batel.
Okay, before you go into that, I think it's really important to note that this episode is the first time we've heard Batel's first name.
What was her first name again?
Marie.
Okay, yeah. Either way, we start the beginning of the episode. The setup is Pike is kind of trying to get out of doing Batel's vacation plans. He bullshits her a little bit, and she kind of cuts off. Right after, of course, the warning from Lon about, the danger of talking to people is if you have strong emotions, you start talking. You start singing. Mm-hmm. This happens on the bridge.
Yep.
When Batel comes on the screen, Pike starts singing. Batel starts singing. He starts admitting to bullshitting her, and Lon finally has the sense to run over to Uhura's panel and shut it off in mid-song. They can carry a tune.
They can.
It's.
But this is a pretty good. This is a pretty good indicator that Pike is a pretty shitty boyfriend.
Yeah. And should not have a singing. And Anson Mount shouldn't have a singing career. So yeah, but they kind of work it out, and he's like, and Batel kind of says at the end, says, "You got to be honest with me, or this is going to shit."
Yep.
So let's address Spackle now. So, beginning of the ep, Chapel learns she got a fellowship with Dr. Roger Corby.
We've been waiting for that one. We've been waiting for that one to drop for a while.
Yep. This is the big one, because from the original series, the episode was What Are the Little Girls Made Of, I believe?
Yes, that is correct.
Yeah. In that, Nurse Chapel reveals that this is her fiance. So this is Christine Chapel's future fiance that she's going to go off and fall for.
Yep, and then in fact, and then I think the whole plot of that episode was she was surprised because he had disappeared. So yeah, I mean, it's nothing to do with this episode. It's just kind of
backstory. But yeah, so that's So the big concern here, though, is, oh no, what about Spock? Yeah, because obviously there's some tension there and some stuff. So later, so while they're discussing, so we cut to later where Spock and Uhura are discussing how to solve the main problem with the whole singing. Spock spots oh no, there's the communication from Dr. Corby. Did she get it? Oh, I didn't read it. Oh, okay, I wonder what's going on. So they're continuing to discuss that. They walk up, the Odoro discussing what happened, that triggering the music itself might be the key to solving this, and that we need to figure out what triggers it. We know it's strong emotions. Door opens, there's Chapel celebrating getting the fellowship. So Spock goes in and makes it awkward, and Chapel breaks into song. This is a fun number with a lot of choreography. Jess Bush is a low alto singer. Not the strongest singer, I will say that, but she carries the tune well, and just the orchestration makes it fun. But ultimately, it's about how she's ready to embrace her future, and if she has to ditch Spock, so be it. Spock walks out and is sad.
And that's the thing is I have to say, because there's the whole thing about, the character of Spock has always been one that's been torn between his logical side and his human emotional side, and look, as everything goes along, typically the character has evolved in a way that has been very interesting to watch, and it's good. Like, I mean, the way they wrote Spock for this series is that he's young, he's still figuring things out. So when he realizes that she's dumping him, like, he doesn't lose his shit, but you can tell he's hurt. Like, in only the way that Spock could communicate, he's hurt.
And he's going back into full Vulcan mode.
Yeah,
which plays into what happened 2 episodes earlier when Boimler kind of spoiled things a little.
Exactly.
It's Boimler.
Yeah.
So yeah.
But also, again, how they wrote it, it plays in well as to why there is an emotional separation between the two characters later on in the original series events.
And then, other than the pining for Spock that Chapel does there, which is painful, but yeah, now we've decoupled and we've ended Spackle. Although it's probably going to, which means it's going to be we'll probably get a little bit of echo of it in the next episode before Chapel leaves completely, unless they've decided to cut her out completely from this episode.
I don't know. We'll see. It's going to be very interesting because the next episode of the whole season has been a roller coaster. They've kind of given us some fun stuff, and then they intersperse it with serious stuff. And the last 3 episodes have been a serious roller coaster between those old scientists and then going into the very serious episode with the Klingons, and then coming back up with the musical
episode, and then this,
and then the last episode is going to be bringing back the big bad of this series, the Gorn.
Because semi-spoiler, but this was shown on the Ready Room, so mini spoiler for the next episode, for the final episode, but it's already been spoiled online, is that we cut to Pike looking over a ship destroyed and wondering if Batel is alive.
Because it's Patel's ship.
To what we know that this is going to be the season where she's on the planet and sees the Gorn ship. So we know that's coming. This is obviously that, and the Gorn have and we see in that episode, the Gorn have put a line between the Enterprise and the planet and saying, basically with a do not cross.
Yep, that's their line of death sort of thing.
Planet.
And the thing is that and this is slightly off topic for the episode, but on topic for the Gorn. We know in canon that later on the Klingons actually they conquer the Gorn. So it'd be interesting to see, if they show any signs of this development along the way, because the Gorns right now, they've turned them into a fantastic big bad. So I'd be interested to see how that kind of develops. Yeah, yeah. The whole thing is
A big
for
bad
those.
of TNG.
Yeah, for those who don't know, the Ferengi were supposed to be these evil, scary guys, and they basically turned out to be clowns in furs.
Yeah. Until DS9 came along and made them useful.
Oh yeah, turned them into wonderfully despicable characters.
Yeah. That could be violent and dangerous, but we're also hilarious and hyper capitalists.
Absolutely. Yeah.
versus going.
And trying to attack people with giant dildos.
We love the last outpost for it's stupid.
Yeah.
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 The Ferengi were not a serious threat until we saw them be threatening capitalists.
I would say the first time I actually felt afraid of a Ferengi character wasn't until season 3 of Picard.
Fair enough. Because, yeah. Anyway. Yeah. So So after the whole debacle, Uhura finds Spock in engineering, kind of moping after the death. After Chapel basically says she's dumping his ass. So he gets a solo piece, and it's Ethan Peck is not a singer.
No,
but he can hit some low ass notes.
Yeah, he can carry, again, the phrase, he can carry a tune in a bucket.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go pay to see him sing, but at the same time,
he gets the job done here. It feels awkward. It feels Vulcan.
Yes.
Because I think Vulcans would sound. Yeah. It
sort of emo.
Right.
Like the emo. Basically, Vulcans are the emo race of Star Trek.
Except without sounding too emo. But yeah, he realizes he's the ex everything, and yeah. So he's getting all isolated and sad, and eventually leaves. And this is where Uhura gets to sing. Spock leaves. Uhura's trying to figure. This comes back in to some degree. This is the mini B plot for Uhura because she's still trying to solve the main plot here. She starts singing about a song about who she is. Starts singing low, and it builds and builds and builds, and we get to see how good Celia Rose Gooding really is at singing. And this is the best solo number of the entire episode because just damn. I'm sure Christina Chong, if she'd had a song this solid, she would have nailed it, but Celia just owns this one.
Yeah. Again, but the wonderful part about it is it does follow that musical formula insofar as that they are shining a light on the thoughts and feelings of the character who's singing. And because not only is she trying to resolve the situation, she's also still trying to come to terms with, like, she's kind of got a little bit of imposter syndrome because she even talks about Hemmer having faith in her, and then her still dealing with the loss of her family in the shuttle accident, so she's still traumatized by it. But again, it comes out in a wonderful way to kind of really fill in where she's at particularly.
Yeah. And ultimately at the end of the song, she goes to the bridge, presents what has to be done. They sing the big final number, and this is where Uhura gets past the imposter syndrome and becomes the communications officer of the U.S. Enterprise for pretty much the rest of the existence of the USS Enterprise until after Jim Kirk's son, that is still in preg mode right now, gets gutted. She's actually, wait a minute. She's a communications officer until that ship leaves space dock without her to go get blowed up above Genesis planet.
And then, of course, she resumes that role aboard the Klingon Bird of Prey, the HMS Bounty, and then picks up from Enterprise A. No B, C, or D.
Or FG, or E, F, G, H, I, or J.
Exactly. So, But
Okay,
again,
so
and this whole thing is that the whole thing for her is that, as you said earlier, she becomes, as Pike says, she becomes the voice of the Enterprise.
and yeah, so that brings us back to the ending. We already talked about the opening and end credits. That brings me to Ortegas. Apparently, they get the other person who's got some musical theater background flies the ship. Sons of bitches, come on!
But again, and she does have that musical theater background, but at the same time, that really wasn't her forte. You know?
Yeah, but they could have given her a song. We're done something with her.
Maybe.
But no, she's background.
Well, I think we'll see more of her taking an active role in the last episode. I don't think it's going to be an Ortegas episode, but we're going to see her involved a lot more.
We haven't seen her doing the shuttle thing, so that's happening that next episode. So we at least get that, and she better get her damn focused episode next season, because they've already resolved a lot of people with a lot of things. Lon's gotten a lot of development. Una's got a lot of development. Pike's going to gotten a lot of development. Spackle, obviously. Uhura, holy shit, she keeps getting episodes.
That's because Celia Rose Gooding, is a phenomenal actress and is just she's nailing the role.
Yeah, well, everybody's nailing their roles. Melissa Navi is nailing her damn role. Give her something to do other than fly the goddamn ship.
They tried to in the episode where they go back to Rigel 7.
And then they cut her out.
Yeah.
They decided to mini fridge her for Spock.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm calling it a mini fridging, not a true fridging. Although that's the scary thing is Batel. This is a point I heard in the next episode. Is Batel going to get fridged for Pike? I'm hoping not.
Yeah, I hope not, because actually, again, that's what I was saying earlier. In the span of 2 seasons, they have managed to endear us to pretty much all of the characters that are involved, all of them, including Batel.
I mean, killing a character is fine, but you better make it Hound be the character's death better be because serving a higher purpose, like Hemmer season 1. Really, it was really a gut punch, and it was well worth it.
And it had lasting effects on characters, specifically Uhura.
Yeah, we don't need to fridge Batel next episode.
And we don't need Pike slipping back into emo phase. Like, I mean, it's bad enough. He knows he's come to terms with the fact he's going to become Fleet Captain Melty Face. So let's just not roll that that beautiful bean footage.
Yeah, let's just keep. Yeah, we could develop more with him, and I'd like to see this relationship continue and maybe come to an end. Who knows? Let it end.
Yeah.
Don't fridge her.
It may even come to the fact where that they stay if they don't fridge the character, they could stay together until he has his accident. So, because we don't know that side of that depth of history in the character. So it's
unwritten.
It's so much room to run with, and so far, that character of Batel has proven to be, on more than one occasion, a very good addition to the story.
Yeah. Okay, so
let's hit the talking points.
Yeah, and we're going to probably skip through a few of these because I think we've kind of already covered them.
Yeah.
Let's start with, let's break our Buffy out here and compare this with the episode Once More with Feeling, which is the Buffy musical episode again. Again, there's a lot of parallels here. Number one, the characters are aware that something has altered their reality, and they're kind of in this musical state. And the whole thing is to figure out what happened. Although it was a demon, and Sandra was the responsible in Once More with Feeling. In this case, it was Uhura and Spock and Pelia trying to pump a musical number into a rift. And all they had to do was sing their way out of it. So, an interesting side note on that. Yeah, I'll get to that actually. And to reiterate the point, yeah, it was heightened emotions brought out songs which revealed things which in both episodes, resolved plots or created complications. Buffy, though, ends on a downer for the most part, with the group getting close to breakup. That leads to the Tara and Willow split in the next episode because, yeah, things have gotten bad. And then the whole Buffy and Spike debacle and all the problems that were plaguing the Scooby Gang hit on that episode. A lot of things broke and it got worse. This time, things were pulled apart, but in this case, in the true spirit of Star Trek, they had to come together and all sing to really bring it together. And that's what we got. And it was great.
Absolutely. So what about the bunnies? Tell me about the bunnies, George.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, they're in the scene where they're talking about the quantum states and how things could go wrong. Lon says, so we're going to be this way, or we're just going to poof into bunnies? And M'Benga says, I don't really want to be a bunny. This is a little oblique reference to a piece in the Buffy episode. They're trying to figure out what's going on. They're singing about I have a theory, something theory. It could be this or something. I don't know. But they're doing that song. In the middle of it, Anya, the ex-demon character, says, I have a theory. It could be bunnies. Everybody stops. They start to sing. Somebody else starts to sing, I have a theory. And she breaks into this entire song about bunnies because for some reason the character's scared of bunnies and they're like terrifying to her. And it's a ridiculous bit. So I think that's what they were calling back to because, fuck Joss Whedon, but that episode was brilliant. This episode does not live up to the level that Once More the Feeling was, but it was a good episode, and it really hit the Star Trek point at the end, and that's what we care about.
Well, and again, they took something that had never happened in Star Trek, and they still managed to wrap it like a Star Trek episode. You know, it had all the nice Star Trek packaging,
but with musical numbers,
including K-pop Klingons.
Yeah. Obviously, this became an Uhura episode because it involves singing and communication. Yeah, it was bound to be an Uhura episode, but with so many B plots, you don't notice it till the big end. And since it was mainly singing, it makes sense to make it about her. If it was about flying, then they could have made it an Ortegas episode. They could have made it a Ortegas episode by making more about flying. So, obviously, we got the big credit here. Christina Chong, Celia Rose Gooding, they were the stars of this episode because they're the singers. They're really good at it.
But that's not to say that, credit where credit is due. Ethan Peck, Jess Bush, Anson Mount, Rebecca Romaine, and Paul Wesley all did a respectable, job at doing their solos. And even where Babs does his kind of fill in on the bits and pieces. Look, I mean, the thing is, like,
we'll give them the Willow Rosenberg credit for singing in this episode to him and Carol Kane.
Yeah, well, and the thing is they kept it, intentionally low key because maybe they're not the strongest singers, so that's fine, and it's not a big deal.
Not everybody is, but they did the job.
And the thing is, you mentioned the choreography was good. The Richards dancing in the hallways is pretty fun. I mean, the only thing that was missing was them doing frickin' somersaults. Through the hallway, through the corridor.
I don't know. That openly have been if there was a hall breach, then they could have somersaulted out and
into space.
Died. Because of course. But since it was a musical episode, I'm not going to shit on him too much for not focusing on Ortegas for just one goddamn episode.
I'm gonna post it when I post this on social media. I'm gonna tag Melissa Navia and let her know that that you have an absolute man boner for Ortegas having her own episode.
Yes, Ortegas needs her own episode. Everybody else has. I mean, true. I'll give her. She's gotten more screen time than Mitchell, who is the other bridge officer. but then again, she's not even in the main cast. I couldn't even tell you the actress's name. But yeah.
So let's get on to
one final little thing though. Final little thing. I noticed when we were cutting into the main thing, I got some lens flare on the bridge.
Oh, jeez.
In contrast, oh no, this was good lens flare. The lights were hitting just right. You'd pan and you'd get a little lens flare, and it felt right. It felt good. Note to J.J. Abrams: look at this episode as they're coming into the final number. This is how you do lens flare on the bridge of the Enterprise, not the fucking mess of the Apple Store from your show. You don't literally take off screen and you have lights sitting right here, constantly lens flaring the shit out of everything.
Do you know that in the 2009 Star Trek, he literally had crew members shining flashlights at the camera, flashlights just to get that lens flare everywhere.
It was ridiculous. We saw lens flare, and it felt good seeing this lens flare.
Because it was appropriately used.
Then I remembered it.
Then you had a flashback, you had a PTSD flashback.
Yeah. Not the good kind that makes a great episode, but the kind that makes me go and want to find JJ.
Yeah. And just tell him how much you appreciate that. At least you have to give him credit. At least he didn't have rapping Klingons.
Yeah, true. His Klingons were just and they appeared in a movie that doesn't exist. Still better than Discovery Klingons.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you have to add?
No. I mean, again, let's just say that they did a really good job of using the genre to its a proper effect to make an entertaining episode. I was absolutely, again, there are parts of it, especially when La'an is having her solo, I was moved emotionally. So for me, I like music. Like I have the AMSR. I have the I can't remember exactly what the phenomena is referred to. I'd have to Google it again. But there are people who, when they hear certain kinds of music, they get a sensation, like the chills that go down from the top of your head down your neck and your spine. And it is a phenomena that is commonplace for people who have strong connections between the left and right hemispheres of their brains. And so for me, music is incredibly powerful, is incredibly moving as far as emotions go. So when she was singing that whole thing, I think I understand it wasn't the greatest, it wasn't the strongest song, but it was incredibly emotional. And I'm sitting there I'm just like, my eyes are misting up, and I'm like, wow, just wow. I mean, they used it to its wonderful effect. I honestly don't know how they could have done it better.
Written a better song. Although, to be fair,
or given Ortegas her own song.
It was a basic pop. Yeah, that too. Yeah, it was basically, her song was definitely more of a pop song. I mean, it was pop built, same basic chord progression of a pop song.
Yeah.
I listened for that a little bit more. Watched this one twice. The second time, I was listening more to the construction of the music, so I could kind of get a feel for what they were building. So Celia Rose Gooding got the better of the two's song.
Oh, we knew that Celia Rose Gooding had strong pipes all the way back, and I want to say episode 2 of this series, the episode entitled "Children of the Comet," where she and Spock had to sing to basically get the meteor that they were on to basically fire up and do its thing. You knew right there that she had. You knew there was something that they were going to tap into that somewhere along the line. They had to do that more. I mean, and she did kind of bits and pieces along the way, because it's also. I mean, this is obviously a good sign that they took
the character from the original series.
Right, they took care in casting the character of Uhura for this series with somebody who had singing chops. So it wasn't just the fact that she was a good actress or she was the appropriate ethnicity for the character. She had all of the boxes ticked, and so far, like, I mean, for me, no disrespect intended to Zoe Saldana,
Well, yeah.
or even Nichelle. I mean, she will always be Uhura. Zoe Saldana
Celia is
does a
the-
good job, but I feel like she plays her as a very arrogant kind of version of the character. Not the young, confident, but arrogant. So, but again, that's a topic for another time.
I'm blaming Abrams. Celia, thankfully, has had so much to play with that. Yeah, she is easily, because she's had much more to work with, has surpassed. I would say, to all respect to Nichelle, she's exceeded what Nichelle ever achieved.
Yeah,
and she can and the important thing is she can speak Klingon.
Absolutely. There and actually on that note, they actually released they released an article recently explaining what happened with Uhura in Star Trek 6, and I'll talk to you about that offline. However, that is all of the time we've got for this episode of Treknicity. Thank you for joining us as we talk about all things Star Trek. Please check us out on our wonderful socials. You see these ones up here, listed above, as we enter our 10th year of Red Shirt Geeks by viewing all of our content at redshirtgeeks.tv. I'm Lars.
And I'm Patrick.
And remember, go boldly and to rock out with your Spock out. We will see you next time. And on that note, we have just 2 episodes left of this series. As we are wrapping up, we'll do one more recap episode, which is the season finale of season 2, and then we will do a goodbye episode. And then Patrick and I will focus our energies on doing a much more broader reaching Red Shirt Geeks podcast, but we'll tell you more about that as we go along. Again, thanks very much. We will see you next time.